is the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening, Rangers fans. Welcome to the Rangers Journal. It is a Wednesday night tonight, and we are going to be talking about yesterday's 1-1 draw with Dynamo Kiev away in Poland. I'm not going to do it alone. I have got some great people with me to discuss what turned out to be a very good result. So, Ricky, how are you, mate?
Very good, actually. We're on the pod on Monday night, sort of giving our thoughts to the game, and it wasn't very positive at all. So it takes great pleasure to sort of mention that we had a really good performance second half last night, especially back to Hampden. We've got a great chance of going through. So yeah, I'm more than happy considering how I was feeling on Monday.
Yeah. I think it was a potentially very tricky tie that we've seemed to navigate reasonably well. Gary, how are you, mate? What did you make of last night overall?
Yeah, I think myself it was a good game. Interestingly enough, it's been strange listening to some of the comments afterwards that it was an average performance. The Dynamo Kiev are weaker than we thought they were going to be, and as we thought, played well, controlled most of the game. We showed we were maybe not as bad a team as some would have you believe. Still got some way to go yet over the next couple of weeks, but for an away European performance against Kiev, I'd take that most of the time on each draw.
Yeah, I think it's a good away performance. And Dave, how are you, mate? Good to share the podcast with you. I've not had one with yourself or Gary yet.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. I'm actually okay. I think for me, I'm possibly not as infused as the guys on the performance, but I think what's key for me is, one, I'd say we're very much in the driving seat now coming back to Scotland. And I think, two, it's fair to say it was better than Hearts. And at this stage, that's probably about all we can hope for, is just a gradual build on each game. So, yeah, good. Thanks.
Good stuff. Chat, those watching at home or listening on the pod, please do put your thoughts and any questions you might have for the panel in the chat function, and we'll get to those as we go. So we're going to get straight into it, lads. A potentially very tricky tie given Dynamo Kiev's performance against Partizan beforehand, especially at Lublin in Poland. I think they beat them 6-1 in the first leg and then 3-0 in the second leg. So a bit of a prickly customer to have to deal with. We lined up with Butland, Tavernier, Souttar, Balogun, Yilmaz. First sighting of the lesser spotted Ross McCausland on the right hand side. Obviously a bit of a needs must for that performance. Conor Barron, Diamonde, right, with Dessers and Lawrence. And I think most of them set it out on TV as a 4-4-2. Maybe it didn't pan out that way. Ricky, what were your thoughts when that team sort of flashed up, first of all?
Well, it wasn't predictable. I don't think anybody predicted McCausland was going to start. For me, Wright, as we spoke about on Monday night, shouldn't be anywhere near our team. And here we go again, one season later, trying to punt this lad for the past sort of 2, maybe 3 years, and he's still in there starting 11 away in Europe against a team that had a 9-2 aggregate result in their previous round. So, it was always going to be a difficult tie. I could not see us getting anything from that game based on how we performed pre-season, and especially on Sunday against Hearts. Saturday against Hearts. So I was more than pleased with the majority of the play, and I thought young McCausland and his sort of a first half performance showed desire, showed some skill. He wanted to progress, and for me, he was a big plus for that team, especially in the first half. But when you look at the team, I expected the team to start. Maybe Matondo in place of Wright, but McCausland was a big surprise for me.
Yeah. I think as I said before, the lesser spotted Ross McCausland, the first time we've really seen any of him. I think he maybe played in 1 or 2 of the preseason games, but definitely being kind of in sort of the back room waiting to get his opportunity. Dave, I'm going to come to you next. We watched Davies have a bit of a nightmare against Hearts, I think it's safe to say. Balogun came on and really shored up that side. It was quite a clever move from Clement to bring him on towards the end. Were you surprised by Balogun starting with Yilmaz alongside him, or was it kind of expected? And what are your thoughts on the rest of the team?
So I'm not surprised Balogun started, if I'm being honest. I think Davies probably set his stall out in that Hearts game. I know there's a bit of debate. Kind of just, was he actually that bad? Was it usually hype on social media? But I think there was a noticeable difference when Balogun replaced him, and you could see that through the defence. I guess the one thing I wasn't too sure of is if maybe Clement was playing a wee bit of a game, was talk pre-match about Proper not being ready to start. Um, I kind of thought he might line up regardless of what had been said, so not totally shocked because obviously Clement had signposted it in his interview before the game. But equally, I kind of hoped that we would see him. McCausland, absolutely a shock. Kind of came out of nowhere, really. As you say, he's not featured too much in pre-season, and if I'm being honest, I probably expected to see Matondo and Wright on the wings. I was a bit surprised that he switched right over to the left and played McCausland on the right. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, there might have been a hope journey started, but I think realistically, we kind of knew he wasn't going to. And to be honest, at the minute, I think the rest of the team just about picks itself now.
Gary, I'm keen to get your take on not only the team, but also the subs bench, because aside of kind of Robin Proper and Danilo, maybe Sterling, although to come on, there's not really many starters in that subs bench. There's not many people there that you go, do you know what, these guys are? They could be in the team or they couldn't be, and it's almost a shock to see them out. It seems like it's a very depleted bench to me. I don't know what your thoughts are.
No, I'd agree. I suppose firstly on the starting lineup, I was slightly surprised Davis didn't play, not because I think he's necessarily the best defender. I think in European games is probably where he does fit a style. But he's good on the ball. He's able to move it about. It's less physical. It's a little bit more play. So I think Balogun is sometimes better for the SPL type games, but Davies is at least a decent footballer on the deck. So I was slightly surprised. I thought that might have been the case. I think in terms of McCausland, certainly he was a big surprise. I think it's in the group chat that we forgot to talk about him all season. So I think that was a shock. In terms of the bench, we don't have a lot of players that we know where they're at just now. A lot of them have come back to fitness. A lot of them are still young players that we've not seen enough of. Some of them we've got some players that are still waiting to leave because that are not in the squad that would add something to it if they were playing, given the ability they have, like Hadji and Cantwell, but they're not part of the future. So we're left with what we have until we move some players on and bring in 2 or 3 other starters. Then what that potentially does is move some of the players that are in that first 11 onto the bench and gives you a stronger squad that way.
Do you think, Gary, that we've maybe overhyped or not overhyped, but kind of thought too much about the NCRLers and Igermans coming in, that we think they're probably going to be there or thereabouts, but actually it's probably a longer term plan?
100%, definitely. I think we talk about this a lot, about 1 minute we want to bring in all the young players and build and rebuild and create a team over a few years. Then when a result goes against us, we want to just bring in all the experience and start again. And the truth somewhere in the middle with all these things. I think we are 2 games into a season. Some of these players will play at different times. Jefty, who we'll talk about later on, or Hefty, however you say it, was slaughtered at the Man United game, and I was at that, and he was dreadful. But he was written off effectively straight away. He can't defend, and whereas tonight he's come in and made a big difference. So I think there is a little bit of patience, a little bit of calmness. We are 180 minutes into a season, and players will get their chance as time goes on.
We know it's a cutthroat business being in the bubble in Glasgow, but yeah, I think you're right. I think we do need to give a little more time to these guys. Ricky, the match started pretty well. I thought we started really quite aggressive with our press. That seems to be a big shift in how we pressed against Hearts and pre-season. Did you notice that?
Well, they were certainly going together as far as pressing the balls down, which they weren't doing against Hearts. They were all over the place against Hearts, and as we touched on Monday, there didn't seem to be a shape to the team against Hearts. So that was quite pleasing that everybody seemed to be settled into some sort of system yesterday. So when one went, they all kind of closed down together. And that proved throughout the first half. You've got to bear in mind that this team didn't realise, but they got 2 or 3 players from Dnipro who are a Champions League team because the club obviously folded because of the state of the country. So they've got a quality side. They won 9-2 against Red Star Belgrade, who are no mugs themselves. So hence why a lot of us, I thought we went there, we were going to take a wee bit of a doing it, be backs to the wall sort of a performance, and it wasn't like that. It was tit for tat, don't get me wrong, but we had our chances the same as they did. Jack Butland made a couple of good saves, but we missed some good chances as well, you know. So that was a positive for me. Collectively, we were working as a unit. We didn't see that on Saturday, so that's a plus. And if we can build in these sort of a team ethos, I mean, going to the Motherwell game on Saturday, I would tend to, and we would discuss it later on, I would tend to sort of start with the team that we generally finished with last night against Kiev, because there's guys on that bench that came on and they more than did enough to be starting on Saturday for me.
Yeah. I wanted to get your thoughts, Ricky, just before we move on to Dave, about Tom Lawrence and his first half performance. For me, I thought he's starting to grow into that role a little bit. His link-up play seemed good when we got the ball forward. There was a couple of times he brought the ball down really well from the air. He had a good shot on goal. What was your take?
Well, again, you can only base yourself in 2 games. I don't really take much out of pre-season. I just think it's just getting minutes into the legs. On Saturday against Hearts, he was a little bit found wanting. I don't know whether he was just lost in a shape that wasn't there. But last night, Tom Lawrence is a good player. I mean, technically, he's a very good player. He's a Welsh, or was a Welsh international, and probably still would be in that Wales squad had he not fallen out with the previous management. So Tom Lawrence is definitely a good technical football player. So he has the ability, he has the brains, and I just think last night he just looked so much more sharper mentally and physically than what he did on Saturday. And if he can build on that, then Tom Lawrence, I go back to the point earlier on, Gary, I'm not convinced that we are going to get rid of Hadji. I just hope it. I just hope I'm right, because I'm not convinced that Hadji's going to go. I think Cantwell will go because he's the one that doesn't want to be here. But Hadji, Dowell, Lawrence, they 3 can, unless you bring somebody in to do that number 10 role. I advocated the other day there, why not try a 4-4-2? Maybe try and get Danilo working alongside Dessers.
Who's that?
A possibility.
Who's that lad you said first? Dessers and who?
Dessers and Danilo.
Don't know who that is. Sorry, can't remember what he looks like.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What is going on there? You know what I mean? So he had an injury, we get that, but he's had a pre-season and we're still not seeing him. So are we getting told everything that's going on there? Not sure.
Interesting one. Sure, we'll come on to that in a bit. Guys, listening, watching from home, let us know what your thoughts were on Rangers' first half performance. It'd be good to get your take on it as well. Dave, I'm going to come on to a player here who I have heard say is head and shoulders above in terms of quality, who makes those around him look daft because he's such a good player. I'm talking about Mohamed Diomande. People that have watched this podcast before know that I'm still very skeptical of this guy from his Old Firm performances last season, being lightweight in a tackle and often sort of just being absent for long patches of the game. What was your take on his kind of first half?
So, if I'm being honest, I do kind of rate Diomande reasonably highly based on sort of glimpses that we've seen over his time here. Based on the start of this season, I would say he's got an awful lot to prove. I didn't think he was great against Hearts, and I think that kind of carried on. He seems to struggle at times. It's almost like he thinks he's got more time than he has, and I don't know if that's a symptom of the league he's come from. To be honest, I can't claim to have watched masses of Scandinavian football, but he's come in and he has shown flashes of what he can do. But looking specifically at last night, I thought he almost seemed a bit lost. He was getting pretty heavily marked by the Kiev boys, so there's an element of that, but really the onus is on him that he's got to be able to break that. And I guess if I'm summing it up overall, I would say based on competitive matches, I'm probably a bit disappointed, waiting for more from him, to be honest.
I think he started well, didn't he, David? He got a couple of goals in last season. Came in and everyone thought, right, okay, we've got a player here, and then it just seemed to fizzle out. Obviously, he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders from the reports that we've heard that he's kind of the next big thing, and it's a huge thing we've got him in place. But I guess time will tell. He seems to trust him. What position, Dave, do you think he was actually playing in yesterday? Because he was obviously in the midfield, but it was a weird one.
I'm not sure if he knows. I think that might be part of the problem at the minute. It looks, when you see him on the pitch, like he's trying to play somewhere between a 6 and an 8. I think there's been quite a few comments, obviously, in the group chat, and I would tend to agree. I'd be keen to see him a bit further forward. Either, fully as an 8, potentially as part of a flat 3, but as I've said, I don't see that happening because I don't think Clement will significantly change his lineup for a flat 3. Or someone actually said it last night. I'd be interested to see how he got on as a 10. I think he's got the passing ability to do it. He's got that ability to pick a pass, link play well. He's got the athleticism to get around up there. I would be very interested to see how he slotted in up there. But then I suppose the counter to that is we're kind of short of midfield options at the minute.
Well, we'll come on to one of my favourite midfield options, who I think made an impact later on when he came on, but we'll get onto that later. Gary, 37 minutes had gone by. We seemed to be in the game for sure, looking like we could potentially get that first goal, and it can only be described as a mistake, can't it? Yilmaz gets caught up the pitch, and the break's on from there. What was your thoughts when you saw that happen, and kind of what you thought maybe the players' heads would do after that?
Yeah. Well, obviously, Yilmaz it's a difficult one because you want him to take risks. You want a player to take risks at times, and he does, and Yilmaz does, and that's part of his game. But when you lose the ball, when you're left with, what was it, Barron, I think, then dives in, if I remember rightly. And for some reason, Souttar's about 3 yards behind everybody else and standing there, playing the boy on side. So pass comes across, and again, he's not looking over his shoulder. He's not watching Yarmolenko. So I think my first instinct was Ridvan was calamitous, but now you watch it, it's a number of small mistakes, and I think it is. The issue is, do you want somebody like Ridvan to try and beat a man or try and pass the ball out? Do you want to do that, or do you just want to play a safe option, which we complain about for hoofing the ball up the park? So a little bit of sympathy there. My bigger concern was more the fact that Souttar seemed to be so deep for no real apparent reason, and then left them exposed. So I think that, in terms of defensively, was poor. Because it shouldn't have been anything. It was a nothing moment, wasn't it? It wasn't a good bit of play. It wasn't a good bit of creation. It was just a collection of silly mistakes to let quite an easy cheat goal. And as you do, you start to worry. That next 8 minutes, I think it is, or 10 minutes, you're worrying, are we going to lose another one? Because 2-0 is a vastly different scoreline than 1-0 is. But after rocking for a while, I don't remember anything. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't remember anything particularly close to Butland, and I think you said earlier on that Butland made a few saves, but over the course of the game, he made a couple of long shots and one cross that he palmed out. I don't think there was enough a lot. So we got to half time, regrouped, and I think then personally when we got into the second half, it was a much stronger performance.
Yeah, absolutely was. I want to get your take, Gary, on John Souttar. From a personal point of view, when he first came in, I thought this guy looks the real deal. He looks like he could be a future leader, future captain of the club. Back into last season, start of this season, what do you think he's still on that trajectory, or what?
I think those probably the answer, for whatever reason, is that, as I think as everybody said, John Souttar was a captain of Hearts. He's been a accredited leader for years, hasn't he? People have talked about his leadership qualities, strong centre half, good on the ball, physically imposing, able to head a ball, all those things that we thought we had. And at times last season, when he was playing the left, he looked good. A lot of games, tidy on the ball, quite nice to watch. Made a number of mistakes particularly down the left channels, didn't he? He'd get caught, and you think, is that because he's going with his wrong foot? Since he's moved over to the right at the start of this season, he's been shaky. And it's hard to explain. He's not looking bad. He's just looking shaky and nervous and slightly off the pace. I think there was maybe 3 or 4 passes in count. He overran the ball, or he just Didn't really look like he was doing properly. Doesn't look great in the air. And you wonder when I'm talking about that offside one that it was way too deep. I wonder if that is a lack of confidence. So if you're trying to overcompensate for something rather than actually, and maybe that not getting to Scotland with the Euros, or not getting to the Euros with Scotland, sorry, may have knocked his confidence a bit. He's not quite recovered. He certainly has the attributes to be a good player. For whatever reason, now he's not at the level we all thought he was last year.
Ricky, do you think that Goldson and Souttar, or Goldson gave Souttar something of a bit of a comfort blanket with his leadership skills, because he was very vocal on the pitch, wasn't he?
Goldson, basically, he came to an end for us. Goldson, he was a good player in his day, and he was a good leader. And you know, when somebody tried to ping a 40-yard pass to somebody's foot, he was the only player from the back that could probably do that on a consistent level. We tried to do that on Saturday, and it just wasn't working at all. The balls were getting cut out with the Hearts centre halves. John Souttar was doing quite a lot of that on Saturday as well, thinking he could do the 40-yard pass. I think he made it once out the whole game. John Souttar, for me, has got lots of good attributes, but every time he makes a mistake, he just seems to be getting punished. His positional play is probably the worst part of his game, because I just mentioned David Gary, he's not the best in the air. But going back to the game on Saturday against Hearts, I think we only get the two 90 minutes that you can sort of speak about so far. He wasn't comfortable at all playing alongside Davis. Davis was absolutely awful. I think we can all agree with that on Saturday. So at half time, the manager took Davis off, brought on Big Balogun, and Souttar became a better player. Now, I don't know whether when he was playing on the left-hand side of Goldson, he was getting found wanting, because he's not an actual left-footed player. Being on that right-hand side of the two probably fits him better. And playing alongside Balogun, he certainly is a lot more comfortable in that role than what he was certainly with Davis. It'd be interesting when Big Popper comes in, because Popper, you know, FC20 skipper, a good age, experience, 31 years of age, he'll be a starter. They haven't brought him in just to be sitting on the bench. And it'd be interesting to see who plays alongside Popper. I think if fit, it probably will be Balogun, because Balogun's still got the pace to recover over 10, 15 yards when we need it. And then you've got two big lads with the air, good height in the air to help us protect our goal at corners and set pieces. So that'll be the two for me going forward. But I think John Souttar will probably struggle to stay in that team now if Popper and Balogun decide to stay fit. Although Balogun's at the age now where they'll try and manage his minutes. So I'm not too sure how many games Balogun will play. It might just be Souttar and Balogun that will swap over. But I think Popper will probably be a starter for every one of our league games, European games, until the boy gets injured, no doubt.
That's the Rangers optimism that we love right there. We know know it's so true. Dave, we went in at halftime 1-0 down, and as we didn't expect, I think Kai called it really well right off and Hefte on. Now we've seen bits and bobs of the lad. What were you expecting going into the second half?
So, I mean, as was alluded to earlier, I was slightly dubious given that kind of performance that we'd seen against Manchester United. I have to admit, as much as I'm pretty negative at times in the chat, Hefte isn't one that I've written off yet. I do agree, you can't write a player off after one game, no matter how bad that game was, and I think we'd all agree it was a pretty bad game. So it was more skepticism as to how it would work. I think the important thing here is Clement's taken a lot of flack lately. People not happy with his decisions, haven't got a style of play, etc. I think it's worth pointing out that that was a game-changing decision. I would suggest bringing him on. We instantly looked, for me, a heck of a lot more both dangerous down the left and solid on the left, I would say. I was quite impressed the way that the two of them dovetailed together, Ridvan and Hefte. I thought they seemed to have a really good understanding of each other, what the other one was going to do. And I don't know if that's, defender union, etc. But they definitely seemed to kind of mesh well. You had Ridvan going around the outside sometimes, then other times Hefte was on the outside, Ridvan coming in, but they just seemed to know when to move for each other. And as I said, I thought it was striking, the difference between Bright and Ridvan in the first half and then Hefte and Ridvan in the second half.
Yeah. I think that's a really fair call out. It seemed as though Yarmolenko was causing a lot of trouble down that right-hand side. But for Ridvan in that first half.
I think it's easy to blame Ridvan for that because he's the defender. But I think Hefte coming on shows you just how much that actually can be influenced as well by the one ahead of them. It's totally different.
Yeah, and it felt different. It felt like a brighter, more positive lineup that second half. Gary, a left footer playing on the left-hand side of midfield. I mean, that's mental. Nobody does that anymore, right? It won't catch on, surely. But it was refreshing, wasn't it? Just to see that the lad come on and show what you can do in a more advanced position.
Yeah, it was really interesting actually, and we'll probably come to later on when Sterling comes on. The formation seems to change altogether with Ridvan and Tav moving really deep, narrow, and the two and Journey and Hefte really wide. But like a funnel or a Christmas tree, it seemed to be towards the end, which was really interesting. Certainly Hefte, when he got the ball, his first thought was either beat a man with space and cross it in or get it in, and decent quality crosses as well. I mean, if there's one of a few things you could criticise Ridvan, his crossing ability is not the best. Whereas Hefte's ones were pretty strong when he was on yesterday. I think they did look dangerous, all the ones he had. Obviously, there was a great save from Dessers one. He looks energetic, he looks skillful, he looks fast. Who knows where he will be defensively, and we'll see where that goes. But he certainly is something that can bring the table. The interesting thing will be we've not had as you say, football doesn't play with wingers anymore that actually get down the line and cross. So it'll be interesting to see how that helps or hinders our centre forward Cyril, because Cyril's probably quite good at that type of thing. It might actually suit him his game quite perfectly.
I think that's really fair. And there's been a lot of people that have criticised Dessers, and I've been one of them. But is he a player that can get a header on target or a snapshot on target? Yeah. Is he someone that's necessarily great with the ball at his feet? Probably not. So do we play to his strengths, or do we just try and be stubborn about it? It's a really interesting conundrum. Gary, I'm going to stick with you. On 60 Minutes, Ross McCausland, who I think we all agree had a good game, a bright game, first half especially, and Václav Černý came on. How do you think he played for the sort of 30 odd minutes that he was on?
Yeah. Just quickly with McCausland, because I think it's probably a fair point. Go back to what Dave was saying about Hefte helping out Ridvan. I thought McCausland really, really good in terms of that link up with Tav and providing that kind of cover down the right hand side, that support, the very quick passing with each other. I mean, we know that McCausland's game is not going to be running down the line and beating a couple of people. It's about quick, good control, quick movement, quite energetic work rate. And I think he done really well. And obviously very unlucky with that one that hit the post. So I think having came from nowhere, probably, and we're only in the second game of the season, which sounds a bit bizarre to say, he did perform really well. Černý, on the other hand, didn't perform well, but set up a goal with a brilliant assist. He did look a mile off, didn't he? He looks as though he's technically good. I think I'd written when I was doing the match ratings, I'd written a couple of notes, and it was shows nice touches. I think was probably the line I would use. And you can see when he gets the ball, he knows what he's doing with it. He knows how to control it. He knows how to work a little bit of space. But he looked not match sharp and was losing from that way. But he certainly, as we go forward, he's got attributes that you think is going to really strengthen that position.
Yeah. And Ricky, Černý, as we were just saying there, came on, offers something very different to McCausland. McCausland's raw, pacey, willing runner. Černý likes the ball into feet, trying to sort of beat a man and sort of jink past a player. What are your kind of early observations on the guy? Probably more so yesterday than against Hearts. He had a small cameo against them, didn't he?
Well, I'm quite excited about the guy. He's got a good pedigree. He's an international player from a good football nation. So there's no reason why he can't come and do a good job for us throughout the season when we get him match fit. We can't keep on saying match fit. We probably saying this in bloody 4 weeks' time or something. I hope I'm not. But, you know, the fact that we've got him in McCausland and dare I say it, Matondo now in that kind of area that can also swap and change. I like the look of Jeffy on the left-hand side there. That's going to get him Cortez when he's fit, you know, 5 weeks apparently, and another few weeks to get himself match fit. So maybe they have to just strengthen just in that area again just to get somebody else there. But that's actually looking quite healthy in both those wings. But you've only got the two kind of fullbacks in Tav and in Ridvan. Okay, now Sterling can jump in and, you know, cover both them there. Jeffy is brought in to be a left back. So we have got some options, and as the manager has already said, that team is going to look different to what we see now come the end of the transfer window. It's a matter of moving people out before we can bring people in, but I dare say the club, Coppin in particular, is trying his hardest to move these players on so we can strengthen the team. I'm quite optimistic. You know, I wasn't on Saturday, I have to say, but there was a lot of good positives last night. And as I say, the guys coming off the bench, proper, I'm quite excited about. We've got a great goalkeeper. Dessers, he's starting to grow on me, but he's still going to need, you know, 10 shots to get 1 goal. We need a more clinical striker. Hence why, and I think you and I agree with this, Ross, the lad Ramnani from Bucharest, I think would be a fantastic player for us, and he's affordable. So if we to stick with Dessers and Danilo, that's no different to last year, and we're going to have the same problems of putting the ball in the back of the net. You need to score goals to win games.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see Shanklin coming in. I just don't see Rangers forking out 4 million for a 30-year-old. I don't see it. Not, you know, based on the chairman's interview that was televised last week. I don't see us spending that kind of money where there's no resale value. 4 million is a lot of money, you know. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can get some players out so that we go and get that striker Ramnani and get him in.
Yeah,
you know, I think he wants to come already. We moved on by now, you know.
Yeah, and these things are ticking along in the background. We don't know where they're at, to be honest. I mean, as you mentioned there, if we stick with Danilo and Dessers up top as our 2 striking options, well, that actually leaves us probably 2 down, Roof and Seema from last season. You know, arguably Seema could play down the middle as well, and Roof when he was fit. So actually, you're kind of 2 strikers down, and you get one of them injured and one of them's out of form, and before you know it, go on, Ricky.
I actually think Seema will be back. I was saying this to the lads the other night there. I think when you look at Seema's contract, he's got a year left in his contract at Brighton. If the Brighton manager does not want him as part of that squad, if Brighton do not sell him or move him on, they're going to lose the money. So come January, he can sign a pre-contract with another club and walk away from Brighton for nothing. The lad wants to come to Rangers. He's made it clear he wants to be at Ibrox. So we're in a really good position. I think it's going to be a Kent type deal where we'll get him in last day of the window for £4 million, and that might be the gap that's missing over that left-hand side. Him and Cortez are swapping over, and then we'll know that Seema can play down the middle. So maybe that's your striking option sorted as well, because that boy wants to come back to Ibrox. That's my opinion, anyway.
Well, you heard it here first, Rangers Journal viewers. Ricky Mackay calling it. Another Kent deal, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? I've got a sneaky feeling we might see Shanklin creep in through those blue gates towards the back end of the transfer window.
I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say no, Ross, at all. But I just, you know, 4 million for a 30-year-old's quite a lot of money.
Tis.
Ross,
Dave,
could I come in 2 seconds? Just I'm thinking about when Seema. I'm probably like you. I do have a sneaky suspicion he may be back. I would be slightly concerned about paying 4 million, given his injury record for his last 4 years of his career. But one thing it did, if we did bring him back, and we've talked a lot about Dessers, but we've got £6 million striker. Do you know what does that mean for him if we bring in a new striker? And where's his future? We can't sit a £6 million striker for months upon months for a season not playing.
That's a very good point. And Dave, I'm going to come to you on that because Cyril Dessers, £6 million striker, as Gary rightly said. He has his haters. He has those people that say he couldn't hit a barn door, but I thought he actually played pretty well over the course of the 90 minutes. And we'll come on to the goal in a minute. But what was your take on his overall performance?
I actually thought he played okay last night, if I'm being honest. I thought that hold up and then busting a gut to get into the box to get on the end of that journey across, I thought was particularly impressive. I'm trying to think about his other chances. The main ones that stick out for me is the header, which, yeah, he put directly at the keeper, but to be honest, that wasn't an easy header. He had to generate the power in that himself, basically.
Is that the offside one or the flick
yeah,
on?
yeah, it was ultimately offside. But he had to generate that himself, which I don't think helped. There was another one where the ball came into him in the box and he was trying to get turned, but I mean, he was so crowded there that it was hard. I thought his hold-up play looked a wee bit better last night than it did against Hearts, which was interesting. I think the problem for me with Dessers, right, isn't that he's a bad player. He's a decent player. I mean, you don't get more than 20 goals in a single season if you're a rubbish player. It's as simple as that. The problem is just that nagging feeling that for all the great you get, you're also going to get 2-3 misses. And, you know, I think it might be easier if you had someone that you were confident in coming off the bench. But at the minute, we haven't got that. Dessers is it, really. I mean, yeah, okay, Danilo keeps getting named in squads. He hasn't played the 2 competitive games, and I'm sure eventually he will play. But, you know, for now, Dessers is it. And the worry is, if you only get 1 or 2 chances in a game, will he take them? Or will he, you know, miss those ones and then subsequent game he'll get 2 banging goals that everyone will be like, oh, that's amazing goal, well done. And that's the problem for me, is you don't have that consistency. And to be honest, even thinking back to the Morelos days, you almost had similar, not to the same extent, but Morelos missed a lot of chances as well. And I think what most fans want, I think why there's such a pining for Shankland, is he's a bit more clinical. He's a bit more able just to put them away. Just on Shankland, I don't see it happening at all. I don't see us paying that money for the guy at that stage in his career. And I certainly don't see it without one of Dessers or Danilo moving on. I think Igamani's our kind of project striker, if you will. But for me, yeah, you might get Sima, like you mentioned, because he'd be coming in on the wing. But to buy an out-and-out striker like a Shankland, I think you'd have to move on one of Danilo or Dessers before we see any movement there.
Interesting take. Those that are watching at home, let's hear your thoughts. Do we need to sell a striker before we get one in, and then I guess what's that knock-on effect for Dessers and Danilo? Danilo, another one who was, I think, 5.5, 6 million as well, so not a cheap player as well. Gary, let's talk through the goal, because I just before I do, actually, Dave, the other thing I think with Dessers, his flick on header was actually a really good header from the ball in from Jeff Day. And I think in the first half he'd had a volley that was on target also, so he didn't seem to be taking too many chances, in my opinion. I thought he was starting to move in the right direction. I'm not sure if you'd agree with that, Gary. Do you agree? What were your thoughts?
I'm happy to give an opinion on Cyril. As you said, I think that there was a bit of a clamour after the Hearts game actually on the weekend, and from what I seen, the first chance, the fact that most people said all he was doing was roll it in with his foot when the ball's 4 or 5 feet off the ground. I'm not quite sure how he was physically able to do that. The one he lobs over, the second one he kind of hit straight at the keeper, but nice movement to do it. The third one was also excellent play by him. So a lot of the chance he does create is through his own attributes, what they are. I suppose to me, in listening, what is it we want from a Rangers striker? We want somebody that will play every week and stay fit. We want somebody that's got the mental strength that can deal with missing chances, getting knocks, getting heavily criticised week in, week out. So we know he's mentally strong enough. We want somebody that can guarantee 20 plus goals. We know that he will do that. Yes, there's flaws. He wouldn't be at Rangers if he didn't have flaws. Do you know, I think I read one of the comments there saying, what striker doesn't miss chances? I think the clear thing is if you're winning games. The other thing he said, I've heard a few times that he doesn't score in big games. It doesn't make a difference if it matters. Now, he scored in the Europa League, the Champions League qualifiers, the Scottish Cup, the League Cup, scored against Celtic. He scores in games that matter over the course of last season and this season. So I do think he misses too many chances. I do think he's unpredictable. I do sit at the games and watch him and think, you frustrate me. But I also think, you know, those bits of frustration are maybe too heavily played on, and the things he does well doesn't really get the credit it deserves. So a staunch defence of Dessers there, to be fair, but I think.
Oh, fantastic! I loved it. I'm Team Dessers again. You've got me back. No, Gary, I wanted to kind of touch on the goal at the end, and you mentioned mental strength and fortitude, and that keep going attitude that, you know, a lot of players in that position probably would have had a head dropping, getting frustrated at the lack of service coming in. Dessers lays off a brilliant flick in midfield, which it's a great flick. I've watched it 2 or 3 times back now, and it's really good. And then I'll pass over to you. Take it from there. What happens next?
No, well, similar, you know, when I think Tav gets thrown, doesn't he? And I don't know about you, but I certainly was talking to my daughter and my dad saying, just keep the ball, keep it tight, 45 seconds to go, just get out of Dodge with a 1-0 defeat, and we'll come back next week. And then, as again, we throw it in the middle of the park, and Dessers, as you say, does excellent. Also, I think that's probably nobody's mentioned Lawrence. I thought Lawrence done really well for the goal. He played a lovely ball to Hefty. It was quite easy to be cut out by the defender. He plays it over to him. Hefty's cross was I've heard takes on one. I think Dave thinks it's good. I'm not sure it was as good as he thought. I think, you know, the option, the percentage ball was maybe the one through the middle to Lawrence at the time, or somebody else rather than the cross out to Tierney. But Tierney cuts back in, brilliant ball. You watch Dessers. You've obviously seen it on the Rangers website today, no doubt. And he just keeps, it's effectively jogging all the time. Just walks right onto it, rolls into the back, and it's perfect goal. You know, 6 passes, I think. Start from 30 yards out from the edge of our box. You know, outstanding goal, outstanding team goal.
Ricky, what was your thoughts on it? I'm sure you thought it was dead and buried like the rest of us, but 1-0 wouldn't have been terrible. But to have that mental strength to say, do you know what, I'm going to get in the position, I'm going to trust my teammates, get in there and gamble. What was your thoughts on it?
Well, as we said in the chat last night, I kind of mentioned, just keep it tight. Let's get out of there with 1-0. And get, one of the lads has said, no way, we're winning this game. Let's get a goal back. And you could see we were pressing. And we could have scored, you know, before we got the goal late on in the game itself. But the goal was well taken. And Dessers just strolled in from nowhere, really, just ghosted in. He was nowhere near offside and just planted straight onto that cross as it hit the deck and just had to pass the goalkeeper. It was a great finish from the lad. But, you know, I don't want to be the knock of the Dessers here. You know, we've all done that. But there was a period in the first half, I think it was. It was the first half. We broke away from one of their midfielders, made a mistake. He got up to Dessers because he's not very good at holding the ball up. That's one thing he's not. He's not a Morelos. But he's got 3 runners running beyond him, and he passes the ball back behind. I think it was Lawrence. He was trying to find Lawrence is 3-4 yards above the, and then the ball broke down, and they almost scored from it. Now, I'm sure that happened against, was it Manchester United as well? But Dessers lost the ball high up the middle of the park. Everybody was trying to break forward. We were caught cold, and we lost a goal against Man U because of a silly ball from Dessers. Now, that could have been anybody, and I'm not trying to pick on Dessers here, but this is the difference with Dessers. He can't make a simple, it was a 7-yard pass yesterday to what was a very, very good defensive position we were in. 3 players bombing forward. They could have been away, and that simple 7-yard post that didn't go to Lawrence's feet. And for me, Dessers hasn't got a ton of pace, so if you try and play the ball over the top, he ain't going to get on it. He's not good with the ball at his feet because he's not strong enough. He's not a clinical finisher. But Michael Beale decided to pay £6 million for him, or €6 million. Maybe you just have to ask Beale what you saw in him, because we all like the guy, we all like his work rate, and you cannot, you know, condone his work rate at all, because the guy works his socks off. But we need more from a Rangers striker. Would I want Dessers to go? No, we need 3, if not 4 strikers. We'll get Agami in, we'll get Dessers in, and we'll get Danilo there. We still need a 4th striker, and we still need our number 1 striker to come in, I believe. Dessers cannot be our number 1 striker going ahead. Not for me, anyway. Back to square one.
What would the score have been without Dessers last night?
Well, if you had a clinical striker, Ross, we'd have won on Saturday, for me.
You reckon? Did he give up any big misses on Saturday?
Well, he got a header to in front of the Hearts the striker, and he headed it onto the guy's shoulder, and it rattled off the bar onto the post. So he was unlucky with that one, but he could have just headed the ball straight into the back of the net instead of So, and then he had two really good chances. The two good chances that he had, I have to be fair to him, his first touch was fantastic to give him the chance on Saturday, but he just scuffed his chances as usual. We cannot afford that if we want to win these games. We could have won that game on Saturday had we had a clinical striker. If Shanklin was in our team on Saturday with those chances, he would have took one of those 3 chances.
Can I just come in on that, Ross?
Please do.
I think it's great that even with the 4 of us on this pod, you can see the absolute polarity of the Rangers support. You've got Gary there saying he's basically everything we want in a striker, and Ricky's pretty much just he's get rid basically, or get someone decent in. And I think that it's all about opinions. I do think maybe he does a bit more than kind of what you've insinuated, Ricky, but equally, it's the lack of clinicalness for me that does it. And as I said, it's always that worry that, if you only get one chance, would you want Dessers on the end of that chance? He might score and it might be great, but equally there's every chance he fluffs it. And I think that's it for me.
No, and I think you're right, Dave. And I think it's fair to say that we both have that kind of devil and angel on our shoulder when we think of him. Everyone's got that positive and negative spin on him. Gary, I'm sure even you do at times get frustrated with the fella. So we all do know that he's got it in him. But I just want him to do good. I want him to be just probably 10% better. I think just 10% better, and we'd get there. I wanted to touch on Gary, just Dujon Sterling for one moment, if we could. For me, I think a lot of people don't see him as a naturally gifted footballer with the ball at his feet, but you can't argue he brings energy, he brings dynamism, very strong in the tackle, and usually progresses with the ball forward, which is good to see. How do you think he got on?
I think he done really well, actually. I think I said earlier on that the formation seemed to switch with. I think we were talking earlier on about Diamande and Barron, so it seemed to be Barron behind Diamande. So in a kind of straight line, Barron, Diamande, then Lawrence. As that last 20 minutes, it seemed to be Sterling wide right as a central midfielder.
Yeah.
I think Dowell maybe wide left as a central midfielder and allowing Tav and Ridvan to push in back in narrow. So I think it suited him because it suited Tav and suited the formation that he was able to do that role. So there is maybe an argument, which we've talked about many times, the flat midfield 3 that was allowing you're more creative and more skillful, or I suppose ones that are more likely to assist to play. But that might be his best role. And I don't think we'd like to see him right back. Not particularly. I don't think that's his game. I don't think he's going to really do what a dominant Rangers team right back should do. So I do think in midfield role where he's breaking up play, using that strength and physicality, getting the ball to somebody like Tav Cherny that right hand side, who can then effectively do something, help and support them. That's his role. That's where he fits in. And whether somebody's talked about Diamande moving slightly further forward, whether that's Raskin, whether it's Barron, whoever it is that starts to come in, or any other central midfielder, there's a place for him. I'm just not sure it's as a right back.
Yeah, and I think that's really fair. I think he does get a bit of a rep for maybe not being, as I say, the most skillful in the midfield, but actually really does bring something. Ricky, what were your thoughts on Sterling, and do you think he can play in a midfield 3?
Well, the lads in the chat, I mean, and even Sterling himself has said that he's a right back. I don't want him playing at right back. For me, he's a central midfielder who offers so much energy, and the guys trust him, and he can recover. He's got so much burst. It's him and Barron in the middle of that park would be fantastic for us. Barron's a major plus, a major find for us, and that lad's had a great pre-season, 2 really good games, and him alongside Sterling for me would be a solid base to that midfield. And going on to your Diamande point, or whoever it may be beyond him, would it be Cantwell or that Hadji? I'm a bit of a fan of Hadji. I know he may be going, but that Diomande could well be that player, because at the moment, Ross, for me, Diomande, and I agree with your dad on this as well, that his second touch, he just, he's not mentally there yet or physically there yet. He just seems to be always panicking about his second touch because it's his tackle, you know. And I think that's a kind of game, or part of his game he just needs to brush up, because position is good enough. But when he looks up after that first touch, he's always got somebody on him, or, you know, because of his first touch, he's gave the ball away. And if he can sort that out, I think he'll be a real good asset, and he might not be able to, or worry about losing the ball if he's a little bit further forward. If he's that last man, sometimes like young Barron the other night there yesterday, he was like the sweeper at times, coming back and dominating the play, wanting the ball. And Diomande was sort of like chopping and changing with him as well. And I credit for him, but I think Diomande's just that little bit reluctant to be the one who's going to lose that ball and all of a sudden under pressure. Playing a little bit forward, and I think you may well get the best out of Diomande, because he's undoubtedly a talented player. But for me, it's got to be Sterling and young Barron as the two centre midfielders going forward. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And then with Raskin maybe be the one giving those guys a break. Diomande needs to be a bit further forward for me.
Yeah, Dave. If it came to the point where it was sort of Diomande or Sterling in that supportive double pivot, or kind of that half 6, half 8 sort of role that we sort of saw Diomande playing as you outlined, who would you pick out of the two?
Based on current form, you'd have to say Sterling. I think you'd have to. I still think there's a lot more to come from Diomande, but based on what we've seen right now, yeah, absolutely has to be Sterling. I think just what you were talking about, Ricky, was energy. I think that's almost infectious. It seems to kind of spread to those around him as well when he comes on. And I don't know if that is a symptom of what you're saying about, you know, they can trust him. And they can kind of leave him there to do the ball winning, pick it up, feed it forward, moves your other players forward. But there's something about him in that role, and energy is a part of it, but it has such a positive impact on the rest of the team. Yeah, that's a good point, Ross. How do you like Diomande? I'm sensing a bit of slander here. Come on.
Look, I really want to have the best team we can put out, but I don't want people's egos or names or anything to deter from the quality of the play. I think maybe it was later in the game, whatever, but I think even last year when Sterling came in, he never really let us down in that midfield. I can't actually remember a game that he did. I do think Diomande has let us down, even in the game yesterday. Gave the ball away in the final, in our third. Tavernier brought the lad down and got a yellow card. It could have gone on to something way worse. I dare say if that had been Sterling, people would be in uproar. If that had been Dessers, God forbid, it would have been in uproar. But for some reason, you know, the Diamond Boy, should we call him?
Mate.
Yeah. It's like the Diamond Boy, the Golden Boy. If he gives the ball away, he's still got it in his tank to be a good player. But where's that? Where are we seeing the goal contributions? Where are we seeing the dynamic runs and I think he passed the ball forward twice, maybe. In the first half, towards the end of the first half, that seemed to be really incisive passing, but there was just not enough of it. So if it's an empty shirt, then it might as well. He could be the best player in the world, but what's the point in having him on? Anyway, rant over. Gary, I'm just going to bring this slide up here. This kind of summarizes the game from a possession, goal attempts point of view. I think it's safe to say it was fairly even match, but I'd say Rangers probably had the better of the chances. Would you agree with that? Is that kind of how you envisaged it panning out?
Yeah, well, it's not how I envisaged it. No, I don't think anybody envisaged it. We were all slightly nervous after they beat Partizan Belgrade 9-3. I think there was a expectation that Dynamo Kiev were a really, really strong side this year. I can't remember. There was listening to the TV last night. There was something they hadn't really. They finished second behind Shakhtar Donetsk and had won from before Christmas. The new manager came in. They'd won a large amount of games. They were very, very strong over the last 6 months or so. So they're not a bad side. Let's say that's clear. I've heard this a few times today that they're maybe nowhere near as good as we thought they were. They're a good side. So we played well against them yesterday. So we did. To go to the away game, first half was pretty even. We were caught too many times on the left-hand side. But other than that, there wasn't a lot happening. We were probably better in terms of the passing. They were probably more in transition, weren't they? Attacking, trying to break on us as opposed to anything else. Second half, I thought we took control of the game without doing an awful lot. When I'm trying to recall it, I don't remember a lot of chances that we had, but also don't remember us not. It was one of those games you look up for a minute again, think we've got the ball still, and we just kept the ball. Second half, a few times again they kind of broke through. Nothing massively. That I think the one from Souttar gets beat quite easily down towards the kind of corner of the box, and the guy kind of has a half shot, if I remember rightly, and across the box. But that was all I remember them doing the second half. Now, I may be missing dramatic parts of the game, but that's all that jumps out to me. Whereas we looked particularly dangerous. Ridvan, if he could pass the ball, and we talked about Dessers making one bad pass, Ricky. The number of bad passes that Ridvan done yesterday was quite frightening towards the edge of the box that could have gave good opportunities. So we seem to be the one that had, with the right final ball, the right touch, were more likely to do something. Certainly second half anyway. So I was quite pleased. I think 1-0 would have been satisfactory. I think certainly the balance of play we deserved a draw, and I think nobody could dispute it was a relatively fair result.
Yeah, that's a really good assessment. Well done. You should go into podcasting, Gary. Ricky, I want to get from you kind of your overall thoughts of the game, and also kind of I would like to hear what your prediction will be for the I guess home leg, albeit played at Hampden.
No, don't ask me for a prediction, because I predicted we were going to get beat 2-0 last night. I'm more than confident now that we're going to be back at Hampden. And by the way, just for the record, I haven't got a problem with us going to Hampden. I said that the other night there. We will go to Hampden as our home stadium, full of our fans, whether it's domestically or whether it's in European football. A big, huge pitch, and we always play reasonably well at Hampden. So I haven't got a problem with playing there until we can get back to Ibrox. So I wouldn't be using that as an excuse. We'll have the crowd with us. It'll be a typical European night. I thought yesterday, based on Saturday's performance and our little chat on the journal on Monday, I just was not looking forward to last night. We were all meant to be going to the club last night, Ross, when Premier Sports wasn't there. So in a funny way, I was quite glad I was watching it in the house, because I just didn't want to get down and be dejected with all the lads down at the club. But Rangers was so good last night. They weren't brilliant, but just based on my negative thoughts, everything was just upbeat. Based on I was so low and how I thought they were going to do. I'm going to big up Dessers now. Dessers did well last night reading that line. He was always there. His efforts there. I mean, I don't want to keep on digging the boy, because we all like the guy. I just feel that, but he played well last night. As did the whole team. Ridvan, as you mentioned, Gary, was a little bit. But again, is it down to, like Dave was saying, Wright not supporting him in that, on that left-hand side in the first half, because he certainly looked a far better player when Jeffy was alongside him, didn't he? And again, I'm a lot more positive now. Post pre-season, post Saturday, based on last night, things are starting to look a little bit better. If we can just move one or two players, whether that's Cantwell, Hadji, and then reinvest. And I know for a fact, what the chairman said, that the manager will get the money to reinvest. And I've got faith in Clement that he can see, or him and Coppin can see a player. We won't be wasting money. So yeah, I'm quite optimistic and looking forward to Saturday now. Yeah.
And scoreline result for the home leg?
I think we'll win by 2. I think it'll be 2-0, 3-1. If they do get a goal, I think it'll just make us to push on and push on and push on. But I think it may be a little bit cagey, but I think we'll win it by 2-0.
Good stuff. Dave, what is your scoreline prediction for the home leg?
I think I'm going to say either 2 or 3-1. I think we still look a bit fragile at times defensively. And I don't just mean the defence in that. I mean, the entire team, even from the front, still looks a bit vulnerable. Hopefully Proper addresses that to an extent. But, again, early days, it'll take a bit of time for him to be fully aligned with the rest of the team. So I think we will concede. But I think given what we saw in that second leg and that progression we've seen, especially when these other players came on that are going to build up their game time, hopefully at the weekend, I do think we'll score. And I'm hoping actually that we'll score more than one this time. I think the key thing for me is we need a few players to take that burden off of Dessers. Don't get me wrong, he's our striker. He absolutely should be scoring, but we need some of those around him to start chipping in as well. And hopefully we see some of that. So yeah, I think I've decided to talk myself into a 3-1.
Good. Let's hope so. And Gary, over to you. What's your scoreline prediction?
I am going to go with 2-1. My worry is, I'm thinking of the Malmo game a couple of years ago, Champions League qualifier. We finished. Steve Davis scored a late equaliser.
Oh, Gary, we were all positive, and
that's what popped into my head when we were talking scorelines. And you automatically come back thinking, we've got to draw away from home. We're very much in the driving seat. Still a good bit of work to be done in this game. I think that's nowhere near completed yet, and I think that's the only worry. The good thing is, obviously, we've now got 5 games at Hampden for Scott Wright to actually redeem himself again, so that's and get back in the team where he's most comfortable. So I think that'll be interesting to see if he's back and start
Scott Wright can be handing out the oranges, mate.
He loves Hampden. No, I'm only kidding on. But no, I think we have enough quality, but we're still a little halfway through the tie.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I didn't get an actual scoreline out of you, Gary, so I'm going to need to.
2-1. I said, sorry, 2-1, Ross. I said
2-1. Sorry, must have missed that. Well, look, lads, we're past the hour mark, so I'm just going to wrap up now. Ricky, Dave, Gary, thanks very much for joining us tonight on the pod. Those at home, thanks so much for watching. Well, Dynamo Kiev won, Rangers won. If they go to Lublin, we will follow on, and we certainly did. And it's all to play for back at Hambrox. Thanks for watching the Rangers Journal.